Before we start, we would like to thank our partners at Reset Games for providing us with this game for our review, as well as 343 Industries for making the game. If you're looking for a place to buy, sell, and/or trade new and/or used games, ranging from the NES to now the Wii U, feel free to hit up the annotation or the link to their website in the description below. Halo, you know it, you respect it, you love it, especially if you're under 13 years old. For 11 years, Halo has helped define modern first-person shooters and has practically become the flagship title for Microsoft. So you could have imagined how scared they felt when Bungie announced that their 2010 entry, Halo Reach, would be the last Halo game they would ever work on. Luckily for Microsoft, they managed to convince a few of Bungie's members to stay on Microsoft, who would later be known as 343 Industries, to continue on the Halo IP. Before they would eventually release the now successful Halo 4, however, they decided to essentially make a love letter to the Halo of old. This, of course, translates to remakes, and this eventually leads us to here, Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. In the next few minutes, we'll be taking a look at 343 Industries' initial, and somewhat safe, launch into the Halo franchise, and determine if it's worth another romp through Installation 04, or it should be left to the mercy of the Covenant. Before I start on anything though, I should mention that while this video will be reviewing the game, I will also be making some comparisons to the original game as well, to help see how the changes made in this game affect the experience versus the original game, in either preserving it, improving it, or making things worse. With that, let's get started. The fact that this game is a remake of an 11-year-old game, you can probably guess that the plot isn't probably going to be the best compared to today's standards, and you'd probably be right. The Bungie Halo series revolved around the galactic war between the humans and a theocratic group of aliens known simply as the Covenant, and spoilers, they're winning. Badly. Officially, the game takes place just after the events of Halo Reach, where, after the Covenant had essentially destroyed the last major human stronghold outside of Earth, known as Reach, a ship known as the Pillar of Autumn escapes with an important AI and the last of the known living members of a Spartan super soldier program. After the ship's blind warp, they arrive near an unknown ring-like structure before being shot down by a pursuing Covenant fleet. And it's your job to kick alien ass and chew space gum. The game is specifically focused around the two aforementioned characters, Master Chief, the last of the Spartan soldiers, and Cortana, a human-designed AI with a wealth of knowledge about the Covenant, as well as an ancient race the Covenant revere, known as the Forerunners. The game is split up into 10 chapters, focusing on specific events around the Halo structure. However, at this point there's very little I can spoil, so I won't go into too much detail here. When you follow along the story long enough though, you realize it's kind of chock full of sci-fi cliches. You have a near unstoppable alien force, a sole human soldier stopping them, a plasma weapon, and lots of them, and even the tried and true alien parasite. It's all here. This can be given a bit of a pass though, since the storytelling has improved quite a bit in the industry since 2001. In any case, the story isn't the focus of the game, merely a tool to progress it, so getting this game to enjoy the plot probably isn't the best idea. As for characters, here is where the game shines a bit brighter. Although Master Chief has the ever-common strong and silent trait in first-person shooters, this game carries quite a number of somewhat nicely developed characters, from major roles as Captain Keyes and Sergeant Johnson, to minor roles such as the Foehammer pilot, who you'll encounter quite a number of times throughout the plot. Again, some of the people's traits fall along the sci-fi cliches, but you can tell some thought was put into the more major characters. In any case though, the performances are still far from noteworthy, so again, not the game's higher point. Halo Anniversary's contribution towards aiding the story and characters comes in the form of terminals, essentially Easter eggs, scattered throughout the game, with one appearing at least in each of the 10 levels. These terminals lead to special cutscenes that help explain a bit more of the backstory of the game or better show off some of the background events that happen, with the grand majority of them revolving around probably the most hated character in the series, the robotic monitor known as 343 Guilty Spark. These cutscenes range from interactions with the races in the game to personal musings, which give a much better picture of the thought process inside the monitor's mind. None of the terminals are in hard-to-access areas either, so they should be well worth a look, especially since entering the codes that each provide at the end into Halo Waypoint provides a healthy amount of credits towards your Halo Reach profile, as well as unlocking a secret 11th movie that pretty much sets up the plot for Halo 2. If nothing else, hunt after the one in level 9, which is the only terminal not to feature 343 Guilty Spark. As a Halo fan, personally, that one hit me kind of hard. Before I can give a proper review on the mechanics, I feel I must address the graphics and presentation of the game first, as it plays into some of my later points made in the video. As to be expected from your typical remake, Halo Anniversary takes all of the original game and gives it the Halo Reach era high-definition treatment, where most levels before were rather bland and blocky as per the limits of the graphics at the time of the game's creation. Each level now carries an air of realism and outright beauty. At worst, the levels such as number 2, Halo, are still quite a sight to behold, and certain cutscenes in the environment, especially level 7, the library for the former, are truly awe-inspiring. So obviously the old graphics will be something you will miss initially. But wait, you ask, what if I don't want these awesome graphics? What if I want to relive my nostalgia? Will I have to dig out my original copy for the Xbox and slam it into the 360? Well, nostalgia-loving critic, fear not, for 343 Industries has heard your somewhat odd cry. The greatest weapon of Halo Anniversary is the ability to seamlessly convert the game's graphics between the modern H-definition mode to its original Xbox designs. By simply pressing the back button on the controller, players will be able to switch between the graphical styles in both directions almost instantaneously. This feature both allows a direct comparison on how far graphics have progressed in 11 years, as well as provides something practically no remake has really ever had available before. Essentially offer two versions of the same game on the same CD. And given that this game costs $40 at launch, a price that for the record has stayed the same since, this represents quite a deal for gamers in a way. If anything, if a gamer has lost an original copy or had to sell it or whatever, Halo Anniversary makes it so that you still have the original Xbox game, complete with the bells and whistles that come from it being on Xbox 360 and the benefits from Xbox Live. However, concerning presentation, this feature does come as a double-edged sword. In a likely attempt to keep work on this feature less difficult, practically all of the character movements, from talking to gestures, remain the same from the original game. And while this won't be noticed in the original graphics, when you play in high definition, the stiff movements and other blockiness become glaringly apparent. This kind of represents a lost opportunity, as this issue slightly breaks the feel of high definition during cutscenes. It makes you feel like more could have been done. Still, I wouldn't call this a deal breaker, but it might hurt your feelings towards the game in general in the end. Another shortfall on the feature is that you cannot change the graphics during cutscenes. So if you start a cutscene in high definition, you will not be able to switch to original quality midstream, and would have to repeat the level to see it in such quality, and vice versa. As for the music, most if not all of the original Halo soundtrack has been remastered, bringing it up to the quality of recent Halo games, while the character and weapon noises have remained mostly untouched. Probably for good reason. An option is offered actually, however, to switch between original and remastered versions. However, this does require you to go into your options screen, as it is not mapped to a single button. Personally, I didn't hear much of a difference, but I doubt it's an option many people will take advantage of. Still, it's good that 343 thought ahead about allowing this. As I alluded to in the intro, Halo pretty much operates as the blueprint of the modern first-person shooter. So if you've played games like the modern Halos, or Call of Duty, or Battlefield, you have a basic understanding of how things work control-wise, if only a bit rudimentary and basic. You get a max of 2 guns at any time, 2 kinds of grenades, a standard grenade and your sticky plasma grenades, as well as a melee attack, and that's about it. You also get the opportunity to drive multiple vehicles, including the Warthog, think SUV with a turret, tanks such as the Scorpion and more artillery-based Wraith, as well as the Banshee, the only aerial unit offered. Most of these vehicles are controlled based on the camera and are somewhat sticky, which can make driving them a bit annoying at times, but nothing too bad. Movement can also be a bit sticky as well, and the lack of all the bells and whistles in the modern games might have you wanting more. But again, it all comes back to the fact that this is a remade game. However, for me, at about as early as a third of the way into the game, it seemed like all the gameplay mechanics weren't really improved at all and just copy-pasted from the original Halo, especially considering how part of the developer team had worked on either Halo Reach, Halo ODST, or both. And here is where I hold my greatest complaint about Halo Anniversary. In both presentation and gameplay, it became apparent to me that the biggest feature of the game, the seamless conversion of graphic modes, quickly becomes the one thing that hindered potential improvement of the game the most. The only way that the feature would be feasible would be for the developers to essentially make 2 of the exact same game. Otherwise, new codes probably would have had to been developed to translate mechanic or character movement improvements into the old version of the game. One can argue that this essentially allows the remade game to stay true to the original, and while I agree that might be a good thing, I still feel at least some effort could have been made to make the mechanics of the game a bit more responsive. I admit though that I do wish some things from Halo Reach had made it over into this game, especially assassination animations, primarily because assassinating enemies in this game is rather difficult due to odd hitboxes, something that was improved greatly in Halo 2. Halo Anniversary isn't a completely straight port of the game, however. Beyond the aforementioned terminals in the game, skulls were also introduced into the game for players to find and locate, much like the terminals. And for the uninitiated, skulls are a mechanic introduced in Halo 2, but made far more accessible in Halo 3, where upon activation it would change the game in certain ways to, in most cases, make it more challenging. Examples would include increasing the enemy's health, disabling radar, and increasing the range on explosives. These skulls would be hidden in locations people normally wouldn't see, so this gave incentive to explore the maps using sometimes unconventional methods like grenade jumping, which in this game for me was near impossible. And Halo Anniversary carries a number of skulls from older games, as well as coming up with a few of their own, like Foreign, which prevents you from using Covenant weapons, and Malfunction, which disables a random item in your HUD every time you respawn, such as, say, your map, or your targeting reticule, or something else. However, one of the, quote, positive skulls, unquote, introduced in this game is Bandana, which allows infinite ammo. Ordinarily, such a feature would disable achievements in many other games, but in this game, you can still complete these challenges with this skull on, which slightly defeats the purpose of having a challenge in the first place. Granted, Halo 1 is likely the most difficult Halo game out there, but the fact that this exists is still kind of dubious to me. In either case, though, each level can last anywhere from about 20 minutes, concerning the earlier levels, to over an hour if it takes too long, so you have plenty of time to decipher yourself how it affects gameplay. Speaking of which, as this game is on the 360, it grants Halo 1 two things that it missed out because of being released on the original console. The first of which is having achievements. Again, for the uninitiated, achievements are Xbox's reward for completing certain challenges in the game, from as simple as, well, completing it, to pulling off certain scenarios that force you to play the game in a certain way. Now, as I mentioned, the existence of something like the bandana skull does take some of the challenge out of some of the game's achievements. However, there is a nice set of achievements that have to be unlocked on higher difficulties, most of them concerning legendary difficulty. And as I mentioned, since this game can be hard even on normal difficulty, there is still opportunity for the thrill seeker. In either case, the addition of achievements definitely helps this game, and gives incentives to mess around in the game rather than just plow through it. So I am definitely glad they added it in. The other major feature that Halo 1 missed out on was the ability to play multiplayer online, as Xbox Live did not get properly set up until about Halo 2's lifetime. The inclusion of online at the very least finally allows online co-op campaigns for the game. But the biggest benefit is the ability to finally play some of the more popular Halo 1 multiplayer maps online, including a map exclusive to the PC version and also including a map from Halo 2 of all things, something Halo fans have been begging for years, however. However, for those of you who have been paying attention to and are currently worrying about my current complaints of the game, feel at ease in the fact that this game's multiplayer was not modeled under the original Halo mechanics, but under Halo Reach's mechanics. From the beginning of the game's development, it was planned to take the Halo 1 maps and bring them directly into Halo Reach as DLC, as creating a separate multiplayer server for the game would likely have created a lot of unnecessary work. This ultimately would have spawned the Anniversary Pack, which unfortunately tops out at about $15, making it the most expensive DLC for Halo Reach yet, or ever will be. This meant, however, that it was entirely possible to play the older Halo maps without having to purchase this game. So what was the incentive towards putting down an extra $25 to get this game instead, outside of being able to play Halo 1's campaign again? Initially, one of the worries I had about this game was the fact that the Halo 1 maps were going to be DLC. So I assumed that one required Halo Reach in order to experience those maps online. Happily, however, not only is a code for the DLC included for free in new copies, but the maps were fully accessible from the CD itself, and even went as far as directly connecting you to Halo Reach servers and allowing you to build a profile on that game. In other words, getting Halo Anniversary essentially gets you partial access to a totally different game's multiplayer. However, keep in mind the word partial. Players who play off the Halo Anniversary CD are limited to the 6 competitive multiplayer maps and the 1 exclusive firefight map specifically made for this game included in the map pack. They are not able to play any of the other maps in Halo Reach. However, the free DLC code provided with new copies of the game meant that a person could play completely from Halo Reach and have access to every map ever made. So, assuming you have Halo Reach, you're essentially given the choice of personal preference, but either way, you win! Not to mention, this part of the game also displays the fusion of Halo 1's designs and areas with more modern mechanics, fixing the major issue that I had with the campaign experience. So you get to see how great this game can be, or at least could have been overall. So, Halo Anniversary. Would one? Buy one. Honestly, it really depends upon how you look at the game. For $40, you're essentially getting a polished version of an 11-year-old game that definitely shows its age at this point, as well as a free map pack for a totally different Halo game, while simultaneously giving you limited access to the same game. If you're a person out there looking for a brand new game to play and you've never played Halo 1 or really any of the Halos at all, then I might advise looking elsewhere because for one, this isn't a new game, but two, you can likely receive a much fuller experience from games like Halo Reach or the modern Halo 4. It's clear that the target audience for this game is, well, Halo fans, but also to those new to Halo who are also willing to give it a chance. For the newbies, this game provides essentially a nice, albeit hard, history lesson, and the multiplayer component provides a small fraction of what was once the most modern version of this game. So this would provide a way to wean the person into the series in general. As far as concerning Halo fans, however, there is a lot to gain from getting this game. On the one hand, you have a perfectly preserved and now better looking original Halo, which allows those who were there from the beginning to essentially play the game that Bungie had likely envisioned, while allowing those who started further down the line, from say Halo 2 at the earliest, to experience Halo 1 essentially the way everyone else had. And on the other hand, you're not only getting a $15 DLC for free, but the game's connection to Halo Waypoint provides benefits for your Halo Reach profile as well, not to mention unlocking more Halo goodies as far as story and just lore in general. So, if you are a Halo fan of any shade, for $40 this game can be considered quite the steal for what it comes with. For those who are not interested in Halo or just first-person shooters in general, I don't know if you'll really like this game. But for those of you who are willing to give Halo a chance, to see what all the hype is about, this game provides a unique experience and opportunity that personally, I feel remakes don't pull off that often. Although, if you are a person who is brand new to first-person shooters, I advise going through this game on easy mode the first time. You'll thank me later. This has been GuyChristian9 for CrystalStarStudio. I hope you enjoyed my review of Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. If you would like to discuss anything that I said or didn't say, feel free to weigh in the comment section below. But for now, suit up, Spartan. Humanity needs you.
He's hot! Blowing the pins in 5.